Absolutely. Is she back? Is she here this morning? Okay. Please be sure to introduce me. Okay. Love to meet you. Love to meet you. Congratulations. Lisa. Ah.
Okay, go for it. All right, you get some good ones.
Water under here?
I just took it. You want me to get another one?
No, I asked the folks to get some because there was none up here.
Oh, take mine. Take mine.
That's all. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Can I say that you're doing this? Looking at doing it. The city of Philadelphia is looking at. Antonio did it.
Yes. Well, we're introducing a resolution at the pension board this week.
Okay. So
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Hey, Dad. Mario? Yeah. I asked him to. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Well, it's a pretty raucous bunch here this morning. Must have been a good night last night. Speaking of last night, why don't we, some may want to forget about last night. Speaking of last night, seriously, let us give, again, Tom Cochran and the great staff at USCM a big round of applause. That was a jamming good time last night, and I appreciate everyone making it here this morning. We have sent word over to the St. Regis. We actually have a couple staff members getting the last couple mayors out of the hotel who ended up some apparently in the wrong rooms. They forgot that they were not at the Capitol Hilton, and so we had a couple awkward situations with this is my room. No, it's not your room. But the organization is fully capable of working with the D.C. Metro, and we, at the last executive committee meeting, we established a bail fund for mayors. So everyone will be back by the time of lunch. Chief Lanier has assured me. In any event, good morning, everyone. At this time, I want to honor a leader within our Conference of Mayors who has decided on her own to retire after 20 years of service. Arlene Mulder has been the mayor of Arlington Heights, Illinois, since 1993. She has served on our executive committee for many years and has been a strong supporter of gun violence prevention programs and public safety, and of course has served as the vice chair of the Criminal and Social Justice Committee. In addition, she has worked tirelessly within the Chicagoland region on key issues such as airport noise reduction. The strength of this organization has always been its diversity. And regardless of size of community, center city, or suburb, or political party, more times than not, we mayors share so many common concerns and outlooks. Mayor Mulder has been the embodiment of this truth. Arlene, you will be greatly missed. Please join in welcoming her, but on a personal note, let me also say that she has been just such a great, great friend and supporter of mine. And as I've come to this organization a number of years ago, she was one of the first to express her support for my movement up into leadership. And so, ladies and gentlemen, a big, big round of applause. Arlene Mulder.
I should just say thank you and step down. I'm not old. It only took me 13 months to make this decision. I shocked my village manager, my colleagues, and I learned that I was going to run unopposed for my 6th term. But besides being a mother, I'm a grandmother. I have a wonderful husband who has been extremely patient. For those of you who know him, he's quite a character. Kind of bossy, too. Maybe that's why I wanted to get out of the house. I don't know what to say, except I was sitting there and I'm listening to each and every mayor this morning, and they all become comedians. And I don't know how that happens, but I think maybe because we work so hard and we see a lot of ugliness. And when we get together, we can just be ourselves. And U.S. Conference of Mayors, and I said this at a women's meeting, is just incredible. And the guy that needs a standing ovation is Tom Cochran and his staff. Thank you. He doesn't have to run for office, but he has to put up with all of us. Mayor Nutter, your leadership, your kindness to me over all these years, I've seen a lot of mayors come and go after 20 years, and I've been coming to this, and my predecessor is the one that convinced me to be on the board. Actually, I've been a public servant working without a salary, even as mayor, by my choice, for 34 years. And so I was really young. I'm real proud of this blue ribbon, because all of you have the same first name, Mayor. And every once in a while I'll find it in a closet. I think I'm going to keep this one for a long time. You have a big responsibility, but with the guidance and what you learn and what we share by coming to the U.S. Conference of Mayors meetings will make you 10 times better than if those mayors who choose not to participate in this organization. It's amazing the people you get to meet, sit next to, great mayors who have accomplished so much and also seen such tragedy. We saw a lot of them become governors. Wow. I'm just going to end by telling you a lot of people have asked, well, are you running for higher office? My answer, there is no higher office than being the mayor of your city. Thank you.
We have a plaque, of course, for Arlene from the U.S. Conference of Mayors, presented to Arlene J. Mulder, Mayor of Arlington Heights, given in appreciation of your distinguished service to America's cities and the United States Conference of Mayors. Of course, Tom's name and my name are on it, but you know the most important one is Arlene J. Mulder. Congratulations.
Photo.
You get a box, too. You get a
You get the most important is
Yeah.
the box.
Really?
Thank you, dear. I mentioned to Arlene, you get a box with it too. The thought just struck me as Arlene mentioned, and I want to suggest maybe a new tradition. Unfortunately, over time we do end up leaving office. So I want to suggest Arlene made reference to her tag and or badge that she was going to keep it. So I want to suggest maybe that throughout the course of the day, don't all rush over to her table now, but maybe we would sign her name tag as a memento for her service with us. So that'll just be something new that we can do. I loved everything that Arlene said this morning. I will say I will not be following the complete no pay model, and certainly with my wife up here on the stage, she agrees. So it's a two to nothing vote on that one. Wow! One more time, give it up for Arlene Mulder. I have one housekeeping note. I've found a black men's coat, size 42L, was left in my room a couple of nights ago. It is now down at the concierge's office. If you go outside, you might want that coat, or if you feel that you're missing a coat, you can go and check that one out. I will mention to you that the $5,000 that was in the coat is now not with the coat. So yeah, you just your size, Scott. Yes, 42 long, no question.
In high school.
Right. Nice. I now have the great pleasure of introducing a really good friend and a great leader in this country, and that is, of course, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel. From 1993 to 1998, Mayor Emanuel worked in President Clinton's White House as senior advisor to the president for policy and strategy, where he was instrumental in creating the COPS program. Mayor Emanuel then spent 3 terms representing Chicago in Congress and served in the House leadership, where he was a fierce advocate for cities. As President Obama's chief of staff, he helped to orchestrate the passage of health care reform, Wall Street regulation, and the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Now, of course, Mayor Emanuel is championing public safety, open government, school reform, greater constituent accessibility, innovative financing to improve urban infrastructure, and I think we'll probably also hear from him on the issue of public safety. We've had a couple conversations over the past week. He'll go into more detail about some of his efforts and ideas in Chicago. Some of you may know just earlier this week, on Tuesday, on the actual date of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, I did announce in Philadelphia that we will be taking action with regard to our own pension fund and investments that may exist with regard to gun manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, and seeking to more positively influence their behavior in terms of the industry, take steps to make things safer in terms of corporate practices. And in that regard, a set of principles we will be adopting. Our pension fund will take up that matter this upcoming week, and I am hopeful that it will be approved, and we'll reevaluate whether or not we invest in those particular companies based on their behavior and their commitment to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. You'll hear more about that for Mayor Emanuel. One last thing. Tremendously generous with his time, with his efforts. He's a great leader in the central part of the country. We enjoy working with him, and it is my pleasure to bring to this podium Chicago's Mayor, Rahm Emanuel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Mike, thank you very much. It's good to know that on your vote about your salary, it was a resounding 2-0. I know it was in doubt for a second there, but I'm glad it carried forward on all levels. Let me say, and I want to pick up where Mike just left off. When I was with President Clinton, I'm passing both the Brady bill and the assault weapon ban. A lot of the focus at that time was on the NRA. They were as fierce in their opposition then as they are today, and in my view, in common sense gun legislation. As we all know, the Brady bill deals with a 5-day waiting period for criminal background checks. Both of those legislations were successful because it was focused on criminal access to guns. Didn't get farther afield than that specific area. But who is beyond the membership of the NRA are the gun manufacturers themselves. They are very supportive of both the NRA's efforts, but also making sure that any efforts to restrict criminal access is prevented. I happen to think, while I support wholeheartedly all the President's proposals and will fight as an individual mayor to see them through, and hope we as an organization also continue to do that, as a baseline, it is essential to deal with the 40% of the guns that are purchased that do not get a criminal background check. It is essential to do that. Now, whether you're mayor of a big city, a suburban city, a small town city, creating at the national level a baseline is essential. So all guns, regardless of where they are purchased, a criminal background check is done. And the gun manufacturers play a significant role in this debate. And we, individually, have a role to play in encouraging, as Mike would say, I would say in more than just incentivizing, because the city of Chicago now has taken the step, and I know Philadelphia is now going to take their step. LA is also doing that. I would encourage all of you to do it, to directing each of our pensions now to search whether they have any investments in any gun manufacturers of assault weapons, and to then divest. City of Chicago's Teachers Fund actually had an investment. They are now taking proactive steps to divest. Now, I'm going to do what I need to do. We're all individually going to do what we need to do. Collectively, we are stronger when we all act together. They need to hear a clear and unambiguous voice. You'll do what you need to do, but do not get in the way of a comprehensive background check system to keep criminals' access to guns away. And while there's no doubt that this is a national legislation, we can all go in our individual way, as I have this week when I introduced my own ordinances on stiffening the penalties. I did it also in coordination with our Cook County Board President. But a federal baseline on that background is essential. And none of us are powerless in this. Now, do I think that because I took my step to the city of Chicago? No. But I do believe if all of us had policies as it related to investments in Iran, as we have had investments in South Africa in the past on apartheid, if you have believed in those steps, which all of us have had to individually, cities and others have taken steps, clearly when it comes to the assault weapon manufacturers, and clearly when it comes to the debate about a comprehensive background check, if we can do it as it relates to Iran and their policy, if we do it relate to apartheid, we clearly can do it as it relates also to this issue, and help the President and the Congress finally create, in my view, common sense gun control legislations that will complement all of what our police, our after-school investments, our tougher penalties on gangs will do. Without this, our system is all that much weaker. Now, I happen to be for a ban on assault weapons. I happen to be for a limitation on clips. As I like to note from the back, I don't know if any of you know this, but there is a federal law when it comes to hunting ducks. 3 cartridge limitation. Federal law. So whether you're in Alabama, whether you're in parts of Pennsylvania, whether you're in parts of Illinois, parts of California, whatever state you want to pick, it is a federal law. 3 cartridge limit. People go duck hunting. Putting a limit on the magazine so you deal with the lethality of an Uzi, we cannot be in a position that we have laws that protect our ducks better than when we protect the people of the residents of our cities. I mean, so when people say common sense, I want you to think about that. People go hunting all the time. That's sports. And they go duck hunting. They do it with a federal law as it relates to a 3 cartridge limit. Duck hunting goes on. But if we can have a federal law as it relates to that, surely we can have a federal law as it relates, when you think about what the governor had spoke earlier about. Every one of those children from Newtown had 9 bullet wounds or more. Now, I wouldn't recommend anybody go duck hunting with me. But if we're going to have a federal law on a limitation for the sportsmen as it relates to duck hunting, we surely should have an assault magazine limitation as well, because the lethality of that weapon changes. So those are things that I think we individually should help pass. I'm going to take the steps and further financial pressure that I can on the gun manufacturers so they either stand to the side or fully endorse comprehensive background checks to keep criminals' access to guns away. And don't anybody ever tell you, from 1994 and 1993 when the Brady bill passed, and then the 100,000 cop program and the 94 bill, if you remember the 30-year history going in, crime was on its way up. James Q. Wilson and everybody was talking about the fact that we just had to get used to this as a country. From the time that President Clinton passed that bill, starting in 1995, we've had a 20-year run, basically, of crime coming down. Why? Because it was simple but clear. More cops on the beat, getting kids, guns, and drugs off the street. That was the strategy. And the Brady bill, the assault weapon ban, the 3 strikes are out, after-school programs, and 100,000 community police officers doing community policing in our neighborhoods and our streets worked. There's a lot of debate whether the assault weapon ban worked. It worked in conjunction with everything else, and the data is clear. So we are taking our steps, and we're going to take additional steps as it relates to financially pressuring the manufacturers and those that are associated with them to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I hope that all of you would take a look. We as an organization continue to be a voice. I will tell you from those battles, both on the crime bill, the assault weapon ban on an individual vote, and the Brady bill, the United States Conference of Mayors was in the leadership. It was in the leadership, and the day after the crime bill went down, on its first vote, it actually went down because of the assault weapon ban. A lot of Republicans talked about midnight basketball. It was the assault weapons. They derided the crime bill, but the day after it went down, and for the 2 weeks until it finally passed the House of Representatives, the Conference of Mayors stood with President Clinton shoulder to shoulder, across party line. Regardless of party, we had a common voice about what it took to protect our citizens and our residents. I hope we continue to do that in this upcoming battle. This is a moment in time, I think, that all of us know. I believe that we're in an inflection point that's tipped. Aurora, Colorado, Virginia, Oregon. But Newtown, Connecticut is one of those moments in time that we all knew where we were when it happened. We are all citizens and residents of Newtown, Connecticut. Let us add our voices, our financial power, to bringing together common sense legislations that will make each one of our cities, each one of our communities safer, and the jobs of our police officers and our superintendents and sheriffs and chiefs of police all that much easier to achieve what we set out as their goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Emanuel, and thank you for your great leadership on this particular issue and, of course, many, many others. I look forward to our further discussions. This is a topic of conversation within the conference, and it is an issue that ultimately we must come to grips with. We've had a 40-year history of focus and attention on the issues of public safety. This is that critical moment. We've talked in the past about, again, the one man whose life and legacy will celebrate the official holiday on Monday, struck down by an assassin's bullet. 2 months later, another great leader in this country, Robert Kennedy, struck down by an assassin's bullet. We're coming back full circle on these issues. We need to stop having the same conversation over and over and over again. And we are mayors. We make decisions and then move forward. So let us have the rigorous, active discussion about this particular issue, but then we must act, because that's what we do each and every day. I'm now very pleased to announce the winners of the 2013 Prescription Drug Abuse Recognition Program, sponsored by, of course, the conference, and our partner, Purdue Pharma, LP. For the past 3 years, our partnership with Purdue Pharma has allowed mayors to record radio and television public service announcements on the dangers of prescription drug abuse, especially among our young people. This past year, our partnership has shifted focus to recognize and share the work that mayors do in cities all across America to prevent drug abuse and misuse of prescription medications. Today, we're awarding 4 outstanding local prescription drug prevention initiatives. Joining us to help make the official presentation is Alan Must, Vice President of State Government and Legislative Affairs at Purdue Pharma. Alan? Thank you. Now, 4 awards will be given in 2 categories, large city and small city, and we'll start with the small city category. In second place, for its innovative partnership with the regional grocery store chain to make it easier for residents to safely collect and dispose of unused and expired medications, is the City of Asheville, North Carolina. And accepting the $5,000 award is Mayor Terry Bellamy. The First Place program sees young people not just as a problem, but as a solution, and will use a team of specially trained peer educators to raise awareness community-wide about the importance of prescription drug safety. Please join me in congratulating the City of New Bedford, Massachusetts, and Mayor John Mitchell on this $10,000 award. And now the large city category. The second place winner is Baltimore for a curriculum-based substance abuse prevention education program that promotes life skills and also provides support, family counseling, and mentoring. This partnership is between the City of Baltimore and the Mario Do Right Foundation, founded by Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and actor Mario. Unfortunately, Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake cannot be with us right now. Through the wonders of Amtrak she was able to get back to Baltimore right now to participate in their Martin Luther King Day parade. Mayor Rawlings Blake will be back a little later on this afternoon. So accepting the $5,000 prize is the foundation's namesake himself, Mario. And the first place award goes to the City of Madison for its comprehensive initiative to provide prescription drug safety education to residents as well as clinicians, first responders, drug treatment providers, and other stakeholders. Please join me in congratulating Madison Mayor Paul Soglin for this $10,000 award. Yeah.
You can bring it to Vegas.
Thank you. Let's give a big, big round of applause to all of our winners and Alan Must. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. It's pretty obvious, but sometimes the obvious bears repeating. Again, Tom and his team do a fantastic job, and to have this organization working with us, Purdue Pharma LP, is just one more example of why it's important to be a participant and a member in the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm sure the constituents back home will be very, very glad that those mayors are participating and are able to bring back some of that money to their community. It is now my great pleasure to introduce a wonderful friend, a great leader, and our immediate past president, and one who I served as vice president. And that, of course, is Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa of Los Angeles. As his successor and someone who served as an officer with him, I can say that our organization today is stronger and our cities are better positioned because of his hard work. Mayor Villaraigosa advocated nationally for creative solutions to create jobs, improve our schools, and fix our crumbling infrastructure. Just last night, we were together for another event here in the hotel. Mayor Villaraigosa is a leading voice, along with our great mayor of Houston, Anise Parker, and Mayor Bloomberg, in the Mayors for Freedom to Marry coalition, an organization focused on making sure that same-sex couples have the same right to marry as everyone else. This is a great civil rights and human rights cause that Mayor Villaraigosa and a number of others, including myself, have taken up. It really is about the right that everyone has to love who they want to love and to be with whom they want to be with. I encourage more and more of our mayors to join this coalition. We're up near 300 mayors, and I'm committed. We'll be doing some active recruiting later on today to get up over 300. It's the right fight at the right time. Mayor Villaraigosa is here with us today as an unwavering champion of comprehensive immigration reform. In his job as mayor and from every other platform, Mayor Villaraigosa has been quick to remind our leaders here in Washington that our cities and our nation cannot live up to its full potential until this issue is addressed. For many years, the Conference of Mayors has recognized the significant economic, social, and cultural contributions that immigrants make to our communities. At the same time, for too many years, we have seen the absence of a sensible, effective, and comprehensive national immigration policy here in the United States, and that has resulted in enormous human and financial costs. Mayor Villaraigosa is here today to discuss what we must do to fix our broken immigration system. Let us please welcome back to this microphone the one, the only, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa.
The one, the only. You know, let me begin by thanking and congratulating Mayor Nutter. He's hit the ground running in the last 6 months as president, and under his leadership, you've seen this conference really play a significant role. A significant role in the area of jobs and job creation, on the fiscal debt, on sequestration, on protecting cities and funding for the important economic and housing and community development needs. And I want to just acknowledge and thank him for his friendship and his leadership. And I want to also say something about the issue of guns as well. You know, Ram and Michael have put forth a notion that one of the most important ways that mayors can really be involved in this debate about sensible gun legislation. And when I was Speaker of the Assembly, I was the author of the California assault weapons ban. When I was Speaker, we passed the prohibition against buying a gun, more than one gun a month. We safe storage and trigger locks. And we did that, and we saw a decline in crime, gun crime in California. But without a federal law, you know, you can buy a gun in a state right next door. I won't say which state. But, you know, none of us have a vote. Not a one of us have a vote in the Congress. And we've seen, despite the advocacy of this organization and the fact that we represent 90% of the U.S. economy, up here, these people kind of operate on their own. This is a way for us to impact the debate very directly. And I just want to acknowledge and thank Rahm Emanuel and Michael, because Michael has put forward a set of principles that cities can use to pressure these gun companies. And we got to do it. So let's give them a big hand, both of them. Thank you. Now, there are many things I miss about being president of this organization, and one of them is working with Tom and his staff. And, you know, I always feel compelled to say something about Tom because this guy's got the energy of an 18-year-old. He works day and night for this organization. Let's give him a big hand. He's always there for us. Now, there's an ancient Chinese proverb that some may even call it a curse. It says, you may live in interesting times. Now, without a doubt, these are interesting times. Our national political agenda is packed. Our leaders here in Washington face a series of fundamental challenges: the debt ceiling and our country's long-term fiscal stability. What we do to make American infrastructure, education, research and development investments that will make our cities and our nation thrive. Gun control, sensible gun laws, stemming the awful cost of gun violence, winding down the war in Afghanistan and dealing with the aftermath of the Arab Spring, and of course, achieving comprehensive immigration reform. Now, there are few more fundamental questions that we face than who we welcome to our shores, how we secure our borders, what we do to include the millions of undocumented men and women who work hard and do the hardest work, and how we keep them safely together with their 5 million citizen children. Now, these questions go straight to the heart of who we are as a people. At stake are bedrock rights and responsibilities of American democracy. Now, they fuel strong passions on all sides. But ladies and gentlemen, it's high time that we give clear and consistent answers to these most basic questions. Now's the time for real immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform, common sense immigration reform, humane immigration reform, reform that is cemented by our most deeply held values, reform that serves our country, bolsters our economy, and respects the immigrants who risk so much to come here in search of nothing else and nothing more than a better life. Now, this cause strikes a deeply personal chord to me. It's at the heart of one of my proudest moments as an elected official, as an Angelino, as a human being. In March 2006, 1 million people marched to LA City Hall. On that historic day, 1 million people threw off the yoke of suspicion and fear and stepped out of the shadows. They were moms and dads, they were kids, they were grandmas and grandpas, they were people who worked hard, who were humble, but who were tired of being scapegoated, tired of hearing the catcalls that they're the cause of all our nation's problems, tired of being told to go home and to go back where they came from. They marched because they had a message. They were home. They can't go anywhere that would divide them from their families. And they wanted a response from me, el alcalde, the mayor. Now, some said, and I have a lot of folks on my staff who said, don't do it. You've been in office less than a year. Your job is to fix the potholes, leave immigration to the feds. But you know, when 1 million people march to your front step, I think they deserve a welcome. And here's what I said. I said, you know, I don't see illegals here. Now, that got me in a lot of trouble, But sometimes you have to say it figuratively before it becomes true. You see, no human being is illegal. No human being should be illegal. We should enshrine this principle into the heart and soul of our country's immigration policy. So my message today is straightforward. Now's the time for comprehensive, not piecemeal, immigration reform. Now's the time for our nation's mayors to assert our leadership in this crucial debate. Michael talked about last night. Last night, we honored two great people. We honored Scott Smith, and we honored Stephanie Rawlings Blake at the Latino Leaders Conference. And both of them talked about new Americans in a different way. They talked about living side by side with these new Americans. They talked about how they've enriched their communities. City of Mesa, City of Baltimore. I remember the debate that we had here on comprehensive immigration reform and the Arizona law, and I remember a small town mayor from Illinois getting up and saying that when these new Americans came to his small town, that at first everybody said, well, who are these people? And they were different, and they didn't speak the language, and they didn't know the culture. And over time, they started working and opening up businesses, and their kids graduated from school, and they became part of the fabric of the town, and they enriched the town, and they revitalized the town, and they gave it a new energy that that town had lost because they had lost a generation of kids who had gone to the big city. Well, that is a story that gets told every single day in our cities. We know that story. We live that story. And so now's the time for the nation's mayors to assert our leadership in this crucial debate. We might not have a vote, just like on the issue of guns, but we do have a voice, and we need to use it. I want to acknowledge the work of Mayor Raul Salinas and the work of the U.S. Conference's Immigration Reform Task Force and what he's done to amplify our voice in the immigration debate. See, we need to be at the table because when we are, we're effective. We move the needle. We did it on national transportation policy, and as Michael said, we did it on marriage equality. We were at the forefront of the push for a surface transportation bill. We put our weight behind innovative programs like America Fast Forward. Do you remember when we first started talking about America Fast Forward, people thought we were nuts? There was no interest in it at all. We got Democrats behind it. We got Republicans behind it. We passed it. 1 million jobs created here in America because of our work. And last year, Congress finally broke through a gridlock and passed a $105 billion transportation bill. And America Fast Forward was a centerpiece of the bill. We've also led on marriage equality. Before many of our national leaders expressed their support, we were there, and we stood with our LGBT residents. I believe that our vocal and visible leadership has helped to turn the tide. In November, we won key fights against bigotry and bias in our laws. And with each passing month, public opinion is shifting. And more, the American people are embracing a message of acceptance, of tolerance, of humanity. Now, we need to be part of the immigration debate because immigrants are counting on us. They're counting on our constituents. They make vital contributions to the civic and economic life of our communities. We represent them. Take my city, LA, as an example. LA area has the largest immigrant population in the United States of America. What if I told you that one out of 10 Angelenos is undocumented? 42% of the city is foreign-born. And by the way, they don't all come from one country or one part of the earth. They come from every corner of the earth. 58% of LA households have at least one immigrant parent. We're one of the most diverse cities anywhere in the world. And we draw the adventurous and the ambitious from all four corners of the globe. They come here because of our diversity, not in spite of it. They come with a can-do attitude. They quickly make valuable contributions to our economy. 44% of all small businesses in the LA metropolitan area, not just the city, are foreign-born. They're successful entrepreneurs like Ramiro Beltran and Tran Hoa Tran. Ramiro made his way to LA from Chihuahua, Mexico in 1984, walking 6 days and nights to get to the border. He received his citizenship as a result of the historic bipartisan immigration reform that President Reagan signed into law in 1986. He got his foot in the door in the rental business. He now owns a company that does $5 million in business and employs over 3 dozen people. Tran came to LA in 1994. In 2000, he got his citizenship. 4 years later, he opened up his first nail salon, and then he opened a second one. Our economy thrives on the energy and enthusiasm of business owners like Ramiro Beltran and Tran Hoa Tran. And what's true locally is also true nationally. I know that both Michael and Ram and every one of you have a story like that. Many stories like that. Immigrants or their children started a full 40% of our Fortune 500 companies. These companies, the powerhouses of our economy, the planet's most recognizable brands, have combined revenues of $4.2 trillion. This sum is greater than the GDP of every single country in the world except the United States, China, and Japan. Now, the contribution of immigrants to our country's economic greatness was a key part of the case I made on Monday when I spoke to the National Press Club about immigration reform. My message was simple: the system is broken, and now's the time to fix it. Reform must be balanced. Immigrants must take personal responsibility for their actions. They should do as Scott Smith has said, get right by the law. But as they do, we must provide them with a meaningful path forward to become full members of American society. Now, we have every right to enforce our laws and protect our borders. But at the same time, We need to encourage the aspiration of immigrants. With these principles in mind, we need reform built on the following 6 pillars. 1, a pathway to legal permanent residency and citizenship for the 11 million undocumented immigrants must be at the core of reform. We cannot, in the United States of America, have a second-class citizenship. We've never had it. We never will. 2, legalization should be earned. It's not automatic, but it can't be unattainable. It should be a process, not a punishment, and should include a criminal background check, proof of English language skills, American civic knowledge, and the payment of back taxes. And they ought to get at the end of the line. 3, family unification should continue to be a key priority of our immigration policy. I love hearing politicians on both sides of the aisle always talk about families. They love to talk about families. And that's a good thing. If we're for families, we don't divide them. We don't send mama and daddy back, leave the kids here. 5 million citizen children, 2 million dreamers that know no other country but this one. Family unification, protecting the sanctity of the family, keeping families together not only keeps capital in the United States, it also maximizes the potential that these immigrants start family-based small businesses and grow our economy. I can tell you this. I can't tell you the number of small businesses I walk into in L.A. Korean, Filipino, Vietnamese, Mexican, Salvadoran, the list goes on and on. I walk in, the kids are behind the counter. I walk in, they got a bed in the back where they sleep. They work 16 hours. They're building the businesses. They're creating wealth. They're making America a stronger and better place. 4, the hard work and talent of immigrants fuels our economy. Our immigration policy must expand the avenues for these valued workers to seek legal employment. As the President suggested, let's staple a green card to the diplomas of foreign students getting advanced degrees in science, technology, engineering, and math. We need to expand the H-1B visa program. Now, this is a fundamental point for many of the businesses in our communities. Take the LA example as one. Our area universities graduate more engineers than any other group of schools in any other city in the United States. But more than half of them leave LA. And that's a brain drain that's got to stop. Many of them are foreign students, and they go back. They used to stay. I can tell you, as someone whose family has been in LA for 100 years, that when they stay and they build those businesses, LA has benefited from that effort. So fundamental reform of the H-1B visa program must be a part of any comprehensive reform package. This point isn't up for negotiation. It's a must-have. We also need effective visa programs for agricultural workers and for low-skilled, non-seasonal workers. Folks, if we want to deal with the future flow, we got to make sure that there is a program to allow people to work in places that historically native-born people just aren't going to work in them. 5, immigration reform must include an effective and efficient employment verification system. Such a system can and must prevent unlawful employment, reward those employers and employees who play by the rules, and protect Americans' fundamental rights. 6, we must protect our border through smart enforcement. Now, according to the Migration Policy Institute, by the way, you would never know this by the rhetoric you heard in this last election. What if I told you that over the last 4 or 5 years, we've had a net migration minus? More people are going back than are coming in. There are a lot of reasons for it. 1, we spend more money on border enforcement than we do for the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, and all the federal law enforcement agencies combined. In fact, we spend 25% more. In the 1980s, we were only spending 20% of those collective budgets. So, yes, we need border enforcement, but we also need a more strategic enforcement at our border that recognizes that what we want to address primarily are threats to the nation. Now, this is an ambitious agenda, and already we're hearing voices that it's just too much. They say we need to think smaller and take a piecemeal approach. Instead of a path to full citizenship, they advocate the way station of a temporary status. Instead of balancing enforcement with integration, they call for us to double down on the policy of widespread deportation. Now, the time for half measures and one-sided approaches is over. The bottom line in this debate is full citizenship. There can be no second-class citizens in the United States of America. This doesn't just make moral sense, it makes economic sense. And I'll share with you finally the following. If we legalize the 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, we'll give the economy a $1.5 trillion shot in the arm over the next decade. The federal government will see $4.5 billion in more tax revenues in just the next 3 years. You want to do something about the broken Social Security system? Give them a pathway to citizenship. Encourage them to get an education. They become high-wage workers. They contribute to your Social Security system, and they're going to keep and extend it going into the future. That's not Antonio Villaraigosa saying that. That's demographers and experts who argue that there's an economic reality that comes with all of this that we ought to know, that we ought to share and educate those who have their head in the sand on the issue. Now, we rightly claim distinction for our long history of welcoming people from around the globe to our shores. We're a beacon of freedom and opportunity the world over because we've sealed a social contract of a special and significant sort. As immigrants have stepped across our borders, we've always said, if you apply yourselves, if you work hard, if you join and participate in American society, doors will open. You can achieve a sense of security, prosperity, and above all else, dignity. Not only for yourselves, but for your children. In exchange for hard work and loyalty, we promise to give immigrants a grip on the ladder, to provide it to education and resources, to chart a path to full participation in our society that is transparent and fair. Now, unfortunately, some have lost touch with this tradition of openness and opportunity. For the last 2 decades, we haven't kept up our side of the bargain. We've created an immigration system that's long on enforcement but short on opportunity, a system where states compete with one another to draft more and more anti-immigrant legislation. We've created a system no longer in step with our cherished values and our ideals. In 2013, when we fix our broken immigration system, we have a chance to make it right. We have the opportunity to restore a basic American covenant. Mayors, our conference has been a strong and consistent voice for common sense reform. In 2008, we passed a resolution calling for immigration reform that was comprehensive, that promoted family unification, and that provided a pathway to citizenship. In the coming months, we'll again be called to be a part of the national debate on our immigration future. Mayors, we must answer the call. We don't have a vote, but we do have a voice, and together we can move the needle. Together we can push our national leaders to enact reform that's good for our cities, good for our economy, and good for America. Together we can lead. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you on this issue.
Thank you, Mayor Villaraigosa. Let us give him another big, big round of applause. Thank you so, so much. Very good. I'd like for us now to talk about the work we're doing in Philadelphia to fight digital illiteracy and how that work can be expanded across the country. The Conference of Mayors has long been a leader in promoting education reform and workforce development, and I hope that this discussion will enrich the work being done in cities and at the national level. A few years ago, we discovered that by the year 2030, 600,000 Philadelphians would lack the skills needed to compete in a technology-inclusive global economy. Today, 2/3 of our jobs require high literacy, but only 1/3 of our workforce has that literacy. Unless we can solve this, generations of Philadelphians will be trapped in underemployment, unemployment, and poverty. And this is a problem, of course, all across America. In Philadelphia, we decided to tackle this problem head-on using the Digital On-Ramps Initiative, which would provide anytime, anywhere, any device learning and workforce development accessibility from any computer, anywhere. Digital On-Ramps is a one-stop portal that connects Philadelphians aged 14 to 65 with access to learning tools, other learners, and an array of employment options. The program is successful because it connects people to jobs based on ability and develops new abilities through learning tools and the interface itself. By the end of the 4-year period, we hope to have educated 175,000 young people and adults and provide our entire community with a better sense of many educational and career path opportunities in Philadelphia. We have with us today 3 excellent panelists to discuss the work that they've been doing, and of course, the work remains. Our first panelist is Lisa Nutter, president of the Philadelphia Academies. She brought a fan club with her. A nonprofit organization that works in Philadelphia's public high schools to provide career-based learning experiences that promote engagement and support networks for these students. Previously, Lisa was Senior Director of Research and Planning at Philadelphia Academies and a Senior Project Director at the OMG Center for Collaborative Research. Our next panelist is Stacy Holland, co-founder, president, and CEO of the Philadelphia Youth Network. Philadelphia Youth Network is an independent, citywide entity dedicated to integrating services and building systems that promote positive education and employment outcomes for young people. It has been one of our leading partners for the Digital On-Ramps program. Ms. Holland has made access to support services a priority throughout her entire career. Prior to starting the Philadelphia Youth Network, Ms. Holland served on the leadership team of Philadelphia Works, one of our other key partners in this endeavor. Our third panelist is Stacy Cruz, Director of Education and Serious Games and Creative Director at Pragmatic Solutions, which seeks digital solutions to complex problems by providing gaming and productivity. Ms. Cruz and Pragmatic Solutions has been integral in setting up the technology that Digital On-Ramps operates from. And so with that, let us get our panel started, and my notes tell me that we're going to start with Lisa.
Thanks so much for the introduction and for the invitation to share what we're learning about digital on-ramps with you today. I'm going to reiterate a little bit about what my husband and our mayor just talked about, but also to say that digital on-ramps was designed to solve many of the problems I'm sure you all are facing in your communities. So I'm hoping that a lot of the stories that we tell today resonate with you. Our design is to sort of give you a little overview of the initiative and share with you what we're learning as we're building the system, sort of building it while we're doing it, but also open it up for questions and answers toward the end. So Digital On-Ramps, as my husband said, is a mobile and land-based digital network that's being built to provide anytime, anywhere learning and workforce training for youth and adults ages 14 and up, so big range. But it's all done in order to prepare all Philadelphians to connect to employment and post-secondary education. It's being designed as a complement to what we call physical learning communities, libraries, schools, employment and training programs, not a replacement of, and that's a really important thing to kind of keep in your mind as we move through this conversation. What we also will be doing is providing employers direct links to potential employees, but also develop talent pipelines in selected what we call high priority occupations and industries in our region. And then ultimately, what we're really focused on are 2 big themes: building an opportunity structure or a better opportunity structure in our community, and building a culture of learning in our city. And I'm going to break those down a little bit. opportunity structure. We all know in all of our communities that talent and ability is pretty evenly distributed, but we also know that opportunity is not. And our hope through digital on-ramps is to create a structure that really links people who are primarily disconnected, both youth and adults who are really disconnected from the workforce. So that's an important value for us. Culture of learning. Older youth and adults actually need to see and feel and be connected to the relevance of their education. We don't kind of learn in very abstract ways the way younger people do. We don't have the patience for that. And so digital on-ramps is very much focused on connecting learning to concrete goals and to employment opportunities. Let me tell you a little bit about the partnership that we've pulled together to make this happen. So it's a collaborative structure. We are not an organization, and that's also intentional. We came together to solve the same problem we kept experiencing, and initially we came together with no money on the table, so that was also an amazing thing. But each steering committee member has a planning and implementation role in the initiative, and we have very specific roles, and we do those roles with a sense of urgency. Drexel University is our major university partner, and they are our managing partner, which means for us, they manage the dollars that we raise, and they handle a lot of the administration. We've been joined more recently by Pragmatic Solutions and another technology company called NorthPoint, who have provided intensive implementation support and advice and counsel along the way with regards to technology choices. And we've raised to date a little over $2 million for the first 15 to 18 months of launch funding for digital on-ramps, and are very eager to begin to move this on a very fast track. So in terms of what we're facing, this gives you a sense of some of the problems that we're trying to address. 77% of us in Philadelphia do not have college degrees. 22% of us are what we're considered low literate, so reading at a 5th grade reading level or below. 41% of us lack access to computers and online technology. 37% of us are not graduating from high school, and 28% of us are in poverty. This is the Philadelphia story that we are working very hard to change, and using digital on-ramps to help us with that. And in order to transform many of these conditions, our mayor and my husband is in the middle of really transforming or reimagining and re-engineering some major systems in our city: our school system, our workforce system, and our literacy system. In addition, we have a number of new digital access initiatives and investments that are online that provide additional context and support to digital on-ramps. Digital on-ramps is really designed to sit at the intersection of all those systems, if you think about it, and really catalyze systemic change with regards to them. This is Kimberly. She is not a stock photo. She's a real person. She's a person who actually means a lot to me. I met Kimberly about 2 years ago. Her story really it personifies everything that we're trying to do here and why we're trying to do what we're doing. She dropped out of high school about age 16, but she's one of those people who she's just spent most of her adolescent and young adult life looking for the right educational match for her. So the good thing is that she's a good consumer around her education. The bad thing was that she really couldn't find the match she needed in our city, and she couldn't find it quickly. So she's an intern. I also mentioned she's a fellow in my office, and she is working on the digital on-ramps program with us, or initiative with us, and so she's part of our team. But her story is really one of happenstance and starting, stopping, and starting again. And I'll break that down. Happenstance. She bounced around from program to school to training to literacy to all types of whatever educational option and training option we had. Kim did it. The problem was life would happen and Kim would stop in the middle. And every time she would go to another provider or another employment training program, they would make her start from the beginning. She happened to go to a GED to college. She happened to go to an employment and training program to accompany a friend of hers who was signing up for a certified nurse's assistant training program. And she was just sitting there in the waiting room, and the counselor came out and said, what are you doing? She's like, well, I'm waiting for my girl. I'm just sitting here waiting. She said, no, what are you doing? As in, what are you doing with your life? She's like, well, really nothing. I'm working. I've tried some things. They just haven't worked out for me. So they enrolled her into a GED to college program. She got her GED. She just got her associate's degree in December, and she's enrolled to finish out her bachelor's at Temple University, and hopefully in 2 years she'll have that. So I think, yes, she deserves. It's a great story because it ended well, but it's also, you can hear the starting, the stopping, the starting again, the frustration, the demotivation of that. We could have beat the motivation out of this child, but she was persistent, right? And so Digital On-Ramps was conceived to address Kimberly's story, to address Kimberly's needs, and there's sort of not a conversation that we have where her story doesn't come up. We all can apply our own statistics here. We all know higher education, higher income, more dollar support for our communities. That's not a mystery. So if we can provide the right inputs to Kimberly's journey from dropping out of high school at 16 to obtaining her bachelor's degree, hopefully at 21, she and we can significantly change her economic circumstances and ours as a community. So we're focused on a few really critical things: scale and impact. We're using this system as a way to increase the quality of employment and training and education programs, but also provide good job linkage support to deepen citywide impact of some existing work we're doing. We estimate about 175,000 learners will be using digital on-ramps by 2016. Simplicity is another thing we're focused on. We have to keep it simple. As you heard, the range of people learners we're targeting, ages 14 and up, they also come with various educational levels and different experiences with technology. And thirdly, we're focused on access and inclusion. In partnership with a $25 million citywide digital inclusion initiative to ensure that Philadelphians, with an emphasis on low-income residents, are able to access 21st century technology and training, we can prepare them for our economy. So Philadelphians, in a nutshell, through digital on-ramps, will have access to vetted, personalized, customized training and educational pathways, and connection through on a cloud. They'll have access to portable records and proof of accomplishment through a credentialing system that we're building and digital portfolios. And they'll have tailored matches to employment opportunities. So during our planning phase, we had to get some ideas on paper, and we worked with IBM as part of their Smarter Cities Challenge. And what they helped us do is actually develop an operational plan, and through that planning process, we identified 3 early action projects that would not just provide a solid foundation to help us learn more about how to structure digital on-ramps, but also how users might interface with the system. These early action projects also are helping us maintain the, momentum of the work, and while we really had to continue to figure out the nuts and bolts of how the system would work and plan for its launch later this year, full launch later this year. Those 3 early action projects are the development of digital portfolios, which is the primary interface that the learner sees when they enroll as a digital on-ramps learner. The development of a credentialing system using digital badges, and we'll talk more about that. And the use of predictive analytics to help us understand the skills, characteristics, and potential of the learners that will be using digital on-ramps. With that, I'm going to pass it to who I call the Stacys to walk us through these different pieces.
Thank you. So the concept of digital badges are really central to this effort. And as a concept from a technology perspective, they're not new, but they're new within the context of workforce development. So through a digital portfolio, learners like Kimberly should have a centralized repository for all of the things that they do, access to their courses, feedback from practitioners, and a record of the accomplishments and benchmarks that they achieve. And if all that's centralized in one location, the overall goal is that digital on-ramps can be a destination for learners and a trusted source for employers and practitioners within the community, and a linkage between institutions for many Philadelphians who right now are fundamentally disconnected to the employment process. Now for Kimberly and other earners and learners, when they come into the system, the design is for everything to be very accessible and very targeted, so that the content that she gets, the badges that she's able to earn, the pathways that she sees are customized and adapted to her personal learning goals. That also allows any practitioners or trainers that she's working with to help her better own and monitor her own progress through the system. So it can be incremental, or she may have large benchmarks. But all of that data is very transparent in the system, and it's persistent. And that really builds that accessibility for her, so that whether she's on her phone or she's in a training center or she's at home, she's able to see the same information wherever she is. And that helps build her confidence and her sense of self in the system as well. And in doing that, she's able to access tools and functionality and features that help her build a portfolio and build skills that may help her on a pathway toward better education and employment. Now, through some of these tools, like using a career portfolio, she may be practicing a number of different disciplines that are helping her in multiple tracks. So she may be building a resume or creating a thank you letter, and in doing that, she's using digital literacy, she's using social networking skills, and all of that is being recorded in the back end in the system by mapping all of those tasks that she does and all of the proficiencies that she generates to an established framework that's agreed upon across providers. So there's a consistency in the system that employers can trust and that individuals can understand, and that's very approachable to them. So at every stage of the process, as Kimberly is accomplishing tasks, as she's meeting milestones that are very individualized for her, she's always able to see how close she's getting and receive personal recommendations for other activities, other resources, other courses that may help her earn those accomplishments that she knows are going to keep her on her goals. Now, badges are something that is going to become a fundamental part of digital on-ramps as it grows. Badges are a digital, portable validation of accomplishment. And so as Kimberly is doing things in the system, she's able to see that she's making progress toward earning these digital credentials that she can take with her wherever she goes, whether it's to LinkedIn, whether it's to employment fairs. They're always centralized in this portfolio for her and in this destination in digital on-ramps. Now, over the course of this year, there are a number of different foundational badges that the steering committee and institutions have decided are really central to workplace readiness and advancement. And those include things like problem solving, collaboration, creativity, communication skills. So as Kimberly is doing something like building a bio in the career portfolio, she's potentially demonstrating that she has proficiency in all of these different areas. So at the completion of that biography, she may have earned points toward a digital literacy badge. She may have earned points toward a creativity badge. And all of that's recorded here for her. So wherever she is and whenever she is, she's able to really see what her progression is, and she's able to share that with other people.
So as our badging ecosystem continues to grow, what we envision is adding a wide range of badges that will have direct benefit both for a door learner, employers, and post-secondary institutions. And long and short is that the user will have the ability in which to track their badge, and what I'll call the consumer, the institution that's looking to see whether or not they've obtained that credential, can actually see very clearly the journey that they have taken. For example, Digital On-Ramps works closely with our Philadelphia's Youth Workforce System, which my organization is responsible for implementing, and we envision in attaching this badging system to our career and technical education system within our high schools. So now young people within high school will be able to track their progress from 9th grade to 12th grade as they obtain industry-specific skills. So the third part of our early action is about predictive analytics. And this was really designed about leaving no citizen behind. In order to do that, what we've got to identify are who are the likely candidates that will thrive in this type of environment. So, as our mayor said, by 2016, we anticipate that we will have 175 door learners. And in order to achieve that goal, we're actually going to use a predictive analytic process to identify those learners who would most thrive in this environment. For example, in Philadelphia, we have an initiative called Project U-Turn, which is our city's campaign about stemming our dropout crisis. And even though we've come a long way under the direction and leadership of our mayor from a high school graduation rate of 48% up to 64% as of 2 days ago, it is really critical that we haven't yet reached our 80%, and I would dare say 100% goal of every young person graduating. So we're using analytics within DOOR to analyze those young people who are at risk of dropping out because they're showing early warning indicators and or are also not connected to any type of work. Once we identify those individuals by looking at records such as educational performance, attendance, student engagement, behavior, our delinquent system, our foster care system, and just basic demographics across our workforce systems, we'll be able to blend that data and identify through a predictive analysis who we should target. Then we'll use social media and other types of community-based networks to direct those learners to DOOR with the hopes of, one, directing them towards low literacy supports, second, also directing them towards what we hope in the future will be high school credentialing opportunities and also workforce training opportunities as well. The end result will be that we'll have an extended, scalable learning system where young people have the ability, young meaning 14 to 65 or older, young people have the ability to earn their literacy credentials, hopefully a secondary credential, any type of industry certification, and also workforce development training as well. This is the way that we envision making our city a smarter city. So as an example, what we put together for you is a really quick video that really documents the 3 early stages of the project and how it works for our individuals such as Kimberly, whose story you have heard, as well as our city. So please turn your attention to the screen. So in a nutshell, digital on-ramps is an authentic learning engagement process that is scalable. And as Lisa had shared about the collaborative, this is about building upon the infrastructures that already exist in your cities and not having to replicate or duplicate infrastructure, as well as access for the learner, and that's the simplicity of it. We need learners not to become frustrated because they're trying to work their way through multiple systems and having to repeat the same process over and over again. And so we came together as an attempt to just be curious to figure out what we could build. It also, lastly, opens up access to those of the most vulnerable of populations that are sometimes really hard and difficult to reach. And because it's anytime, anywhere, any device, it allows the learner to really direct their own pace, their own process, but at the same time keeps their digital portfolio live and active, that the system that's actually trying to serve them can see where they left off and pick up from that space. So we are really excited about the possibilities and what we will see. We've already started our first pilot this summer under Philadelphia Academies, and we've seen almost 900 young people who are calling us and emailing us every day, like, can we have more? We love this coursework. And we'll see everything from animations to simulations to core content work to just the storing of badges as they move along. So with that, we thank you for your time and attention this morning, and we're going to actually have a few minutes, I think, for questions. So if we can answer any questions, we're available. Thank you.
So why don't we open the floor to some Q&A, and I think there are microphones floating around, and just ask your question. And Director?
Great. Tess.
Yeah.
Great presentation. Quick question. How do you educate your employers and other small businesses to understand your badge system, and how do they accredit it that that's what they're looking for, and you incorporate the needs that they have from an employment standpoint? Great presentation, by the way.
Is this on? Okay, good. I'll lead off, and you can fill in whatever I forget. Well, in Philadelphia, we actually have a fairly well-organized industry organizing process. So we actually work together across organizations so that we're not duplicating effort. So it allows us to quickly take new ideas like this and engage industry because we're already engaged with them. We just sort of fold it into our natural process of working with them. So the first way of engaging them, though, is to get them involved in the development of these badges or further development of these badges. Mentioned earlier that 21st Century Skills and Digital Literacy badges are our first, or we're considering them foundational badges for the system. Other badges that we'll be focused on will be industry badges, which would basically be working with industry to take their existing industry certification processes and credentials and digitize them. But when we say digitize, we don't mean PDF your exam and then put it up on our system. We mean work with us to create simulations, quests, challenges that really uses the innovation of technology to help people attain skills. And so what our hope is that in this next, what we're going to be doing in this very next phase is beginning conversations with employers about these badges through our existing industry advisory structures, getting their feedback, but also having them help us build certain badges.
I think the only thing to note is the organization of how the employers engage. We actually combined the employer organizing efforts of our chamber, our adult workforce system, our youth workforce system, our academy system, and our career and technical ed. So now there are 10 industry-themed councils that meet on a regular basis, and they're actually discussing what the badges will be, how it will change and transform in their industry, and now we're beginning to work through the recognition process.
Right. And then the other point I'll raise in this is that I think one of the biggest goals with regards to the badges and having a way for to sort of show, as Stacey mentioned, a chain of evidence of what people have accomplished is because employers don't trust what a high school diploma means. They don't trust what a college diploma means, right? But if you can show what people did to attain that credential, you're in a different conversation. So one of the things we'll be focused on in the engagement with the employers is not just about, what do you think about this badge stuff? It's also, getting them to trust it as a trusted source. Will you look at this as a trusted source for information, in particular for people who don't have institutional connections? Right? They don't have a social network necessarily to connect them to jobs. So that's another sort of big goal, is to really get them involved in a way that so when they're thinking about hiring someone, they will use what's on this system to make that decision.
Mayor.
Yeah, this is great stuff. You brought essentially a full century of modernization to the work-based learning, workforce development system all at once. It's incredible stuff. The question I have for you is about the badges. One of the challenges that we've had with this issue in our own region is in assuring that it's actually the student or the person, the individual doing the work. If you have an online-based, an on-ramp for somebody to be able to verify that they have this skill or this competency, how you know that I don't have Mayor Nutter taking it for me to prove that I can work well with others.
Right.
Yeah, you wouldn't
how are you
do,
solving
you
that
wouldn't do
problem?
well. Yeah,
I wouldn't, I wouldn't let Mayor, but no, I would let him take my test because he would do much better in certain areas. We mentioned earlier that this system is being designed as a complement to physical learning communities. So you don't get to be anonymous on the system. There's a human involved at some point in terms of validating that badge and that work. But then I'm going to actually ask Stacey Cruz to speak to how the system's designed in a smart way to deal with those issues.
Each of those badges, whatever they might be, is fundamentally linked to the evidence trail that's in the system. And whomever the practitioner is, whomever the educational institution, defines what that evidence should be to demonstrate proficiency. If it's an attached resume, if it's course completion, that is actually embedded within the fiber of that digital badge. So it's meaningless by itself. If I was to copy and paste Stacey's into my portfolio, that evidence trail wouldn't be there. And that's how the system is being developed, so that as an employer, let's say, if I come into the system and I search for individuals that have a high level of creativity or critical thinking, I'm interested in looking at people who've earned that badge. If her profile pops up, and if I actually click on her badge, I get to see the evidence trail that's associated with it. And it's very personalized. And the way that we're envisioning the system is that everything is curated. So just because you do something in the system, you make it a record. The system shows you, I know that you did it. I know that you created something, you accomplished something. You don't actually earn that badge without curation. Whomever the trainer is, the educator, the practitioner that you're working with, gives that final approval that you've actually demonstrated proficiency, that should earn that badge. So that's the control that's within the system and the platform.
This type of system can only work if you absolutely retool all the adults who are connected to the system.
Exactly.
So there will be a tremendous, and we've just started a tremendous training and rethinking process, not professional development. We need to retool the way that the adult is guiding, assessing, asking critical questions, and looking for that evidences, in addition to all of the technology that we're going to build to make sure that the curation is authentic. But, we want to change the behavior, not just of the learner, but also of the practitioners who are responsible for the guide of that learner to their secondary or post-secondary credential.
Mayor in the middle, and then
Mayor in the middle.
I'll take that. I, too, want to commend all of you on what you've done in raising the bar in this area, particularly under workforce investment. I wanted to ask you a question. Where is the employment counselor in this? And are you suggesting now that these are digital individual service plans for your clients, and meaning the students? And ultimately, what is your placement rate? Because as a mayor, I would understand that the end result is how are we getting returned on our investment through all this, and how many jobs are we creating at the end of the day in terms of people becoming homeowners, having purchasing power and sustainability in their wages and placement?
Well, Stacy mentioned the key function of the professional development and retraining, retooling, helping people rethink their role in this process. The employment counselor, I think that's the phrase you used, is part of that process. This is a tool for them, just the way this pen is a tool to help them write something on a piece of paper. And so when they're sitting with a learner or client or whatever they call them in their organizations, they are helping them create pathways and portfolios, but on the system. So that there's a documentation and record that's centralized. The information that's on the portfolio, though, is actually not owned by the employer counselor or the provider. It's owned by the learner. And that's important in the same way that our health records are owned by us. But as a learner, I can show those records to whoever I want. It's actually to my benefit to do that. So the employer counselor is an integral part of this process because they're the ones who we have to help them integrate this as a tool in their practice. We are just doing these early action projects, so we actually have not gotten to the part where we've seen people get employment through the system yet. When the system moves to fuller launch later this year, we'll be able to begin collecting some of that information because the idea we're calling sort of the first release of the system. There'll be sort of 3 phases of release. And the first phase is really to select a couple of industry areas, target a couple of industry areas, and really try to build some talent pipelines, focus on those industry areas, but also focus on a very narrow subpopulation within the broader group where we're looking at. The subpopulation we've actually selected are young people ages 16 to 24.
16 to 24, and they're actually connected right now to Workforce Investment Act programs because we wanted to test it within the WIA system to determine could we take our minimal WIA investment and scale it out by not necessarily, because what we anticipate is we'll be able to serve more users for less dollars because of the digital portion of this and the way that it's portable, that the young person can kind of go from place to place without necessarily having to re-enroll in a whole nother program. So we'll know more in the second phase of it.
So if you invite us back next winter, we can probably answer that question.
Yes, ma'am. First, and then. Thank you, Mayor.
Could you tell us how the support teams are put together for the students? And are they members from your implementation partners? And if so, when you scale up, how will you be able to how will they handle so many students?
Well, I would like to give 2 concrete examples. Because we're the partnerships, so Philadelphia Youth Network and Philadelphia Academies. So in my portfolio, there's about 17,000 kids annually. In our career and technical ed system, we're anticipating about 7,000 kids annually. We're actually using those systems as part of our test case. So the adults who are actually paired with those young people right now, we're actually using different professional development dollars to totally retool them and use this as a core part of their service delivery at this stage. The goal then is to once we see that it works, that we'll be able to scale it in other systems that actually have an adult already attached to that user in some way, shape, or form.
Right. And what I'd add to that is that in terms of the collaborative, past the, 9 or so people or organizations that you saw up on the screen earlier, the idea would be you get to become a digital on-ramps member by adhering to certain values and criteria and standards. And so that means that you get to share content, you get to add content that's vetted by the administrators of the system and the steering committee, but that as part of this community, you're adhering to certain standards, which would include learning how to practice differently. And leadership commitment to those things. The assumption is that the practitioners are already there. They need to learn have different tools and learn different ways of engaging learners, and that what we need is to build on an existing and strengthen an existing system rather than create a new one. And that's been very intentional in the design. And I can tell you that There's so much drive to let's just create a new organization, but that's really not what we need to do. We need to create a new way of working.
In the middle.
Certainly trying to anticipate what my mayor would ask, because I'm representing the mayor of Chester. And given our demographics, would this program be inclusive? And we will be knocking on your door for this. I said, take several notes. We will be asking for this program to be adopted. But will it be inclusive of those who are already inside of reentry processes?
Yes. I mean, short answer to that is yes. And I think, and again, it's about, is there an organization that, can be part of the Digital On-Ramps network and community who is dealing with that population. One of the members of the one implementation partner is the person who heads the Mayor's Commission on Literacy, and so she has a very specific focus and is always bringing to the table low literate populations, and how do we address that? And so all of those, thinking about the diversity in terms of the learners we're trying to serve, have all forced us to make smart design choices, including the system's adaptability. And so when you log into the system in the digital portfolio, which is the first place you interface with it, it will adjust to your literacy level. It will make the right adjustments to where you are. And so those are the kinds of choices we're making for the very reason you're talking. We know that a lot of reentry population are low literate. We know they've been dropped out. And so we have to make sure that the system can address those needs.
And in the third phase, what the system will do is it will actually tell the learner. It will say, you started here, you know what, you've actually moved up 3 grade levels, and so we need you to go to this course, or this employer is hiring and they match your literacy levels. So when we see it operating at its maximum capacity, the predictability of it, the learner will actually be guided by the system.
I don't see any other hands up. So with that, why don't we give our panel a big, big round of applause. Thank you. I want to thank them for the great work that they are doing. And obviously, the slide was up earlier if you need any additional information, or you can just grab them as we wrap up. This completes this plenary session. You know, of course, that we have lunch at 1 o'clock and still many more activities to go at the 81st winter meeting of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.